Welcome to the Marshall Pruitt Podcast. We have a special episode for you, captured with IndyCar President Jay Frye about a half hour after this morning's announcement of IndyCar's move to a hybrid powertrain. Get to as many things as we can in the 20-ish minutes that we had. They've announced this intent. They have done exploration for a while now. There are many things that still need to be defined, figured out, even at the most basic level of which vendor or vendors will make this kinetic energy recovery system. How will it be deployed? We know the method they're thinking, but for how long, etc. Can it be used on ovals? How? What will it weigh? What will it cost? While I ask many things, not every single thing is at a stage here on day one of the announcement to give a definitive answer. But as usual, I appreciate Jay's willingness to try and help as much as he could. We'll also note that I did kind of acknowledge to Jay, it wasn't necessarily an apology, because there's nothing to apologize for, but I have been badgering him for years that this needed to happen. And it wasn't because I love hybrids. It's not because electrification is my thing. This is something IndyCar has needed to do to modernize itself and appeal to the automotive industry to generate business. So if you haven't already, would strongly recommend heading over to racer.com, giving the original news story that I wrote a quick read, and then maybe the new kind of opinion backgrounder, I don't know what I should call it, piece, but both the news item where I lay out a lot of the things that IndyCar needs to map out and figure out that Jay couldn't necessarily address, to the reasoning, the true need for this to happen. So get a chance, take a look, racer.com, some fun stuff there. Boy, can't wait for next week's episode of The Week in IndyCar, because I know we're going to have a ton more questions. I can't wait to read Robin Miller's mailbag. Even Robin admits he doesn't have a mechanical bone in his body, and yet, of course, folks are going to have questions, which he then passes on to me. So, fun times, truly fun times. So thanks to Jay, and let's get going here, talking about IndyCar hybrids in 2022, all brought to you by Cooper Tires, the Justice Brothers, TorontoMotorsports.com, and if you'd like to listen to any of our previous 600 plus episodes, pay a visit to MarshallPruittPodcast.com. Jay Frye, I think of December 25th as Christmas, but for tech geeks like me who love nothing more than awesome new toys to play with in motor racing, I guess we'll look to August 1st, 2019 as a fairly important milestone in IndyCar's competitive history, where you guys officially stuck the flag in the sand and said, hybrid, that's where we're going. Why don't we just start there? What led to this? Because there's been a little bit of a modification to the engine plans announced a little over a year ago.
Well, I think part of it, thank you for having me today. There's the automotive world is changing, and it's changing rapidly and evolving. So in the last, say, 6-8 months to a year, obviously there's been part of that evolution. So this is one, to Chevrolet and Honda, this is very important. They're two great partners. We're very proud of the partnership that we have with both of them. So obviously if it's important to them, it's probably also important to other OEMs. And, we have conversations with them all the time. So many people know what we're doing, know where we're going. One of the things I want to make, obviously very clear is this technology, our four basic grassroots points are fast, loud, authentic, and unapologetic. This fits right into that. We're still going to be fast, loud, authentic, and unapologetic. We'll be pushing 900 horsepower. We're still going to continue with our formula of less downforce and more horsepower. So, this is just part of the continuing evolution. It fits in perfectly to our 5-year plan. That now it's funny, we keep calling it the 5-year plan, but this thing actually goes out through 2027 now. So it's kind of taking a life of its own in a really good way, we feel. So we're quite excited about it. I think this positions us very well for the future. And again, we certainly appreciate, Chevrolet and Honda's help. They've been a big part of what we announced today. They'll be a big part of it going forward too. But really, we've worked on this again for the last 6 to 8 months. The work's really just starting now. So we've come up with the criteria we're looking for. We've come up with what we want it to do. We know it can. So now we'll send some stuff out to numerous suppliers, again, with Chevrolet and Honda's help, and figure out what our next step is.
So I've been badgering you for a long time behind the scenes, brother. Got to look at hybrids. Got to do hybrids. Not
Yes.
because I love hybrids, or I should say electrification. By adding electrification, we then have a hybrid powertrain. It's just two types of powertrains working in unison. But I've been badgering you for a long time about this. But again, not on the topic of because I just really want Indy cars to become electric, but all back to the point you raised of within the other series that I cover, specifically sports cars. Boy, those manufacturers talk about hybridization as being a really key pillar of their marketing strategies, their R&D strategies, and if they're going to get a new budget to do something brand new in racing, whether it's supplying engines, going prototype racing, whatever, they hear more and more from the marketing folks, from R&D. If it doesn't have a hybrid angle, you might struggle to get money out of us to go play in racing. So outside of Chevy and Honda, which you've mentioned, can you share if you have been hearing from other manufacturers saying, boy, if you had that option, it might be easier for us to come to the table?
Well, I think, yes, absolutely. As if it's important to Chevrolet and Honda, it's obviously important to the industry. So I think it's been amazing. You think of over the last 12 months, how there's been an evolution going on, different things and different technologies and that type of thing. So this is one way that we can, for sure, which is very important to us, to keep our identity, which again, the fast and loud piece, but can also help with our current OEMs and hopefully future OEMs with some different technologies. Just think of this technology going, 240 miles an hour at the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. I mean, that's stuff that's pretty extreme. So, we're really excited about where this could take us. We really feel good about where we're positioned now for the future. Again, there's still a lot of work to be done. We got the aero screen project that's going along very, very well. We got this coming up in 22. So again, there's a lot of, we think, cool initiatives going on. And again, I think it positions us well for the future.
So as always, you are super welcoming and saying, hey, happy that this has been announced, but also know there's probably plenty of questions folks might have. Mention up front that this is an announcement of IndyCar's intent for 2022, and we have every single thing ironed out, figured out. The systems are sitting on the shelf ready to go. So there's still plenty of stuff to be sorted out. Therefore, while we might not be able to answer everything, do appreciate your willingness to say, hey, let's maybe expand on some things or answer some questions folks might have. So why don't we just kick off here, Jay, with Jeff Barak, who asks, is the hybrid power going to be a version of push to pass?
Yes. That's one. So when we came up with the plan, or what we're sending out, or we're talking to suppliers about, is really a couple of things. One is electric starters. So the drivers will be able to start the cars from the cockpit, which we think is important for numerous reasons. One is safety. If a driver stalls, on the track, they'll be able to start the car and go on. It's good for our AMR guys because they're not exposed to with having to go out with the umbilical to manually start them. It's good for the show because, again, if a car spins and can continue on, refire the car, it keeps the race moving along. So that's all good. The other, so from that aspect, we're quite excited about it. And then the other piece is the push to pass. This will add, again, we're not sure yet, but probably 40 to 50 horsepower to the engine. So that will take it, pushing 100 horsepower just on the push to pass piece. So yeah, all these were kind of criteria we came up with as part of this initiative. So it will definitely be part of the push to pass.
Another thing too, and this is, I probably should have asked this, or we probably should have addressed this a little bit more in depth up front. We are not talking about IndyCar in 2022, Jay, being American Formula E, all silent, all electric. You just effectively cover your ears because there's no reason to try and listen because there's no exhausts, no sound coming out. That is not what is happening here. We have the addition of, call it electric horsepower, to a new 2.4 liter twin turbo V6 motor. That's a really big part of messaging, don't you think, Jay, that it's probably going to need drumming somewhat consistently. So especially IndyCar's longer term fans realize, nope, we are not turning off the same familiar engine sounds you're accustomed to.
No, absolutely not. Again, it has to match our criteria, which is the fast and loud and authentic and unapologetic kind of type. So we even had a couple different scenarios. We think the engines could be louder because of this. So just with all the new things we got going on, and then it had the hybrid piece to it. So again, it fits into our criteria in a big way, and we think will enhance everything we're currently doing. So absolutely.
One item that was not in the release today involves chassis. I know informally we've spoken about the same year, 2022, being the general time frame the series is considering having the next chassis come online. Cale Putnam asks, how is the process coming along for developing that next chassis? Who might do it, etc., and when that might come out? So maybe less of a specific timeline, but just more of a, where might you see the new internal combustion engine plus the KERS hybrid or the KERS electric system match fitting into a new chassis?
Well, that's a great question. So originally in the 5-year plan in 21, we had the new engine and new car or new chassis. And then we moved, if you remember, we moved the chassis to 22. So basically now we're moving the engine to 22 also. So they both line back up. So we're quite, excited about that. We're kind of back to our original plan based off of what we just announced today. Think of it like this. I think the car, we worked really hard to the aesthetics of this current car. The fans were involved. There was always great enthusiasm for the look that we were trying to come up with. So the next version will be more of an evolution, not necessarily a revolution. So if this current car, say we were able to do 75% of what we wanted to do, but the canvas was, kind of limited, or that's as much as we could do with the canvas that we currently have. So this new version will be just some updates and some different things that we weren't able to do to the current car. It'll look, it'll be different. It'll be, but it won't be a revolution. It'll be more of an evolution of what we currently have.
So costs, we've had a couple of IndyCar fans ask about costs. That too is another thing that obviously was not put in the release because you're just at the stage of sending out requests for proposals and such. Knowing that costs, though, will certainly be something that you want to keep in check, et cetera, et cetera. Can you share some just general thoughts on that as well, Jay? Because I guess if you didn't, the hybrid system or the KERS system could cost more than the entire car.
Right. Well, good. Again, that's another great question. So everything we do from a team's perspective. Obviously, the economics of the series, again, that's why partly we came up with the 5-year plan was to, so everyone, including the teams who were huge resources and are hugely involved in where we're going and what we're doing. The economics have to be right. The terms have to be right. And everything we do, we negotiate from a team perspective. So whether it's terms, whether it's, initial costs, whether it's however it works, it has to fit into our economic model. And so far we've been, fortunate. We've got some great suppliers, some great partners. They understand that, where we've negotiated terms for the teams. We've negotiated different things for the teams. I think, again, now that this plan goes through 2027, you can map things out to that point. So you can delay or defer costs and different things. So that's something that's very important to what we do. And we take that very seriously.
I guess attached to that, Jay, knowing that every team owner has the Jay Frye bat phone hotline straight to you, is this something that privately, getting ready to announce this, did you do your normal polling of, I don't know if I should say all team owners, but I know you like to at least get the ideas, definitely test the waters and temperatures of folks. What things have you heard so far, at least from team owners, about going hybrid in 2022? And I don't know if concerns would be the way to put it, but What have you heard in terms of feedback of great, hey, don't kill me on the price, et cetera, et cetera?
Right.
Curious what the paddock said so far.
Yeah, no, they've obviously they're part of this whole process and everything we do. So they were all certainly aware of it, and there's been great enthusiasm. They understand, the future and where we're going and what we're doing and how this is going to work. They've been part of the solution. They've been part of the idea. So we actually had a smaller team motor meeting in May, and this was one of the topics we discussed. So they get it for sure. They get, a lot of them are in different series too. They see what's going on other places. They understand that this is really kind of, to me, the best of both worlds, where we can keep, for sure our identity is the fast and loud. And this just enhances what we do, and it enhances our identity, and simultaneously kind of is new technology. As that world is evolving, we're evolving with it, but it lets us keep our identity. So the owners have been extremely supportive. The team managers, the entire paddock who's part of this plan, and it had been part of this plan since, we initiated it in 2016. So again, that they understand what we're doing, why we're doing it, what the possibilities are because we're doing it. And, we all look forward to the future.
We've had a couple questions, Jay, from folks. Ellen Bandy is one of them. A few others who've said, so great, happy to hear it. What about ovals? Because if we're talking traditional KERS system and what we expect this system to be generated under braking, don't do a lot of braking, say the Indy 500, how much thought have you guys been able to give, at least at this early stage, as to whether this new hybrid powertrain plan would include ovals, or maybe just the 500, since it's obviously our biggest day promoting what we do, manufacturers wanting to come in? Just curious about the oval side, because that doesn't necessarily line up with traditional hybridization.
Yes, obviously that's a very important factor. Like you mentioned, that's the 500 being our marquee event. This is certainly technology that would have to work there. It's probably too early to say, but we have 3 or 4 different ideas on how that could work. That's part of the process we're going through with some of the suppliers. And we're enthused and encouraged by some of the things that they've said to us about how this application could work. And think of it this way too: as quickly as this technology is evolving, this is something we're talking about that's 2 years from now, right? So between now and when we start implementing things, the end of next year, we start testing things. A lot of things can change. So we've already seen some things recently that I would say is relatively new and could come into play for, everywhere we go. So stay tuned on that. We're definitely conscious of that. It is different. That's one of the things that's very cool about this series is we're very diverse in the racetracks we go to. Obviously, we do oval, street courses, road courses. So you have a different application, could have a possible different application for each one. But it's all part of the same system.
So what you're saying is I should hold off, at least for now, on starting the Marshall Pruitt Technology Company, where I build 33 extension cords that are 2.5 miles long for the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. That'd
be pretty cool, though. I mean,
talk about untangling them after the race. Boy, that would take some time.
That'd be awesome. Yeah, winding them back up. Well, actually, it's funny that you think about the broadcast partners, all the cables they have. The stuff they have to go through. So it's been done.
We found the NBC IMS Productions and whatnot angle. I love it. They might have just learned that here. Let's see, a couple other really good questions. One of the topics here that seems to interest folks as well is the safety side. And I know there's so many elements to this, although we're talking technology and adding something to the cars, whether it's Formula One, LMP1 hybrid, or otherwise. The safety side, dealing with a car that has a very powerful electric charge in the event of an accident or otherwise. What are you thinking in terms of filling out that portion of the needs? Is that engaging with friends, in F1 or otherwise? What are your best standards and practices? Curious how you approach that as well.
Yeah, well, that's part of the criteria in RFP type things that we're looking at. I mean, we have some ideas of what we think it's going to be. Is it in the 48 to 60 volt range? There's different levels of different voltage that create different opportunities or different issues. So we think, looking at that will kind of dictate what's possible and what's next. I don't think it's going to be any, extreme voltage type situation like in F1 or anything like that. So again, we're exploring that very heavily right now, and we have for the last couple of months. But again, as that technology changes, there's different things going on there too. I think if you look at some of the passenger cars, there's some pretty high voltage pieces to those that are different in a hybrid type situation. So we're exploring where we need to go. Again, we've set the criteria what we wanted to do. The starting the car, the adding the push to pass. What's next after that? Is it could it be a pit road situation where the drivers come down pit road, they press the button, it becomes where the hybrid kicks in, during that piece. That could be in the future. So we'll know a lot more over the next 30 to 60 days.
Last couple of questions, Jay, because I know you have some other things to do today. Looking at the future here as well with the hybrids and such, I know that one of the quote issues with the current chassis was not only did it come in heavier than expected originally, but with a lot of additions on the safety front, all positive there, but also additive when we're talking weight. Stated goal all along for the next generation chassis, again, likely in 22, we're going to do our best to get the weight back down, maintain all the safety aspects, but get the weight back down so performance-wise, the car is more capable. Adding a hybrid system, though, most likely a battery of some sorts. If we're talking what's common, a battery positioned beneath the back of the tub, underneath where the fuel cell sits. That's what you'll find in Formula One, for example. We're talking weight, though. Electric motors / generators at the back. Among the many things for you and your competition team to think through, is there any concern that adding this hybrid system might wipe out any of the weight efficiencies you're planning for a couple years from now in a new chassis?
No, we don't think so. So the unit will actually be in the bell housing, right?
Okay.
So that's part of it. So that's kind of cool. So that it'll be incorporated into that. And then what you're saying is, for sure spot on. We've come up with, as everything you always say is, the safety enhancements, a lot of things to the car over the years has been bolted on, right? So the new version, and we talked earlier about the canvas will be where all these pieces are incorporated into the car, right? So it's built in, not bolted on, which, with new technologies over the years too, there's different materials that are lighter, better, stronger, that type thing. That's part of the evolution of this car. So there will be very conscious of, reducing weight to the car. Obviously, the aero screen is adding weight to the car. So that's another piece of the puzzle. And if we run the car basically as it is now in 2021 with the aero screen, and then in 22 come up with a car where it's lighter overall, have the addition of the hybrid, have the aero screen as part of the car, we think we can get the weight down.
Maybe let's close on this, Jay. And these are conversations you and I would have held. Either I sought you out and had them or whatever in private. So I don't want to really crack any of the finer details open because they're not yet ready for being public. But can you share with folks your thought process on incorporating a hybrid powertrain starting in 2022, 4 or 5 years, and the fact that IndyCar is not viewing this as, say, the end-all be-all, the one and only thing. We're going to be hybrid. There's nothing else. There's nothing better. There could be no further advancements and such in the future. Again, I know without getting into real detail, you have not been of the mindset of, all right, we're going to do this thing, and then we can say we're good and modern. Your mindset's been, hybrid might actually be old technology by the time we get to the end of that 5-year window, and we're going to keep looking at other things in the interim. Can you just share a little bit of thought process there?
Yeah. Well, this is still a combustion engine, right? That has hybrid technology bolted to it.
And that's not going away, right? We can tell folks that we're going to have combustion engines for a long time.
Absolutely, yes. So this is just an enhancement to what we're currently doing. So we're excited about that. There's a couple other things we're looking at for the future. One is maybe even a shorter term, opportunity that we're looking at too. So, again, we have two great OEM partners with Chevrolet and Honda. We've worked very hard to come up with this current platform or what we were announced today about what's next. And again, between now and next year, when we start really working to implement this program, this piece, there's probably going to be a lot of different things that are much farther along a year from now than they are today. So we have to keep up with that. We have to, again, the key to the whole thing was, I think, to remain focused and to our roots, which, is, again, the fast, loud, authentic, and unapologetic. So as long as we do that and all these other things that enhances the overall sport, enhances the direction, enhances where we're going in the future of where we're going, we're all for exploring. And again, we're very appreciative of Honda and Chevrolet, their help to get us to where we announced today.
It's next, but you're working on more nexts. That's the
Absolutely.
thing that I love. And that's probably the biggest takeaway, I think, of all, outside of the fact that IndyCar has modernized itself to a point to where the automotive industry that maybe was a little hesitant on the, hey, we love the fast and loud part, but we need to have the modernity to a greater degree. I mean, that's amazing, but I love the fact that this hybridization is part of a general initiative to look at other things to make IndyCar more and more technologically relevant in the future. It's a welcome return to a place that I lived so happily in my youth.
Yes.
Jay.
Well, thank you. We're excited, and again, we're appreciative. And again, as long as we remain true to our roots, we'll be glad to look at anything.
Jay, thank you again for taking some time, and hopefully we hear Porsche, Ferrari, Lamborghini calling in the background. I want you to go get those phone calls. Thank you, my friend, and I look forward to speaking soon.
Thanks for having me.